Hello, my name is Sheena with Rise Wellness, and this is Activate Your Genius. Today I am going to be giving you my interpretation of Gene Key 63 from Richard Rudd's book, The Gene Keys. If you haven't already checked out my video on Gene Key 64, make sure you check that one out too. It really doesn't matter if it's before or after this video, but you'll see how uniquely interwoven they are. So the 63rd gene, this is the passage from the shadow of doubt to the gift state of inquiry and the highest destiny path or Siddhi of truth. It shares the same physiology of the pineal gland or third eye as the 64th gene, and these are programming partners. What's really interesting about this particular gene is that both Richard Rudd, the author of the Gene Keys, and myself share this as one of our primary gifts. And through my interpretation, I am going to add my personal experience of how this gene has played an active role in my life. So the 63rd shadow of doubt. In Eckhart Tolle's book, A New Earth, he talks about our evolution from the ocean, that all animals had arrived originally as ocean animals and had eventually evolved and adapted to what we are now. So can you imagine the confusion, the doubt, the turbulence of living in such chaos of the ocean that an entire plethora of species had to adapt in order to survive? That process took millions of years, I'm sure. And now here we are with lungs instead of gills and legs instead of fins. But that was a bumpy ride and it took time. And just like the 64th gene, this one takes time. I invite you to jump in, get comfortable, pour yourself some tea, some coffee, some cacao, and check it out and see if you have noticed this gene as it has been reflected in your life. So the shadow of doubt leads us on this path in order to adapt and evolve, and that's why we have the life experiences that we do. Life is here to teach us. Life is working for us to give us all the lessons that we need to continuously evolve and adapt for our own survival, for our own adaptation. Now, what happens oftentimes is we survive, we build all these survival traits through our evolution, and we later find out that some of them may have served its purpose in our childhood or our adolescence or at some point of our lives, but may no longer be serving us. And that's why I'm here to help spread the awareness of this journey, of these genes. As Richard eloquently put in his book, I mean, this is a wild ride, the human experience, right? So in order for us to evolve and adapt as species, that doubt keeps us thinking. That logical mind keeps us thinking of creative solutions for our adaptation. And I find it so interesting how I've noticed this gene play out in my life. When I was a really young child, before I even have a conscious memory of it, my mom tells me that I was constantly drawing these perfect little circles. That's how she would entertain me. If we went anywhere, she would just hand me a pen and paper and I would just spend hours drawing these perfect little circles everywhere. As I said, this gene loves patterns. And now, all these years later, I'm so fascinated by sacred geometry, by understanding the repeating patterns in nature is how I've been able to understand my connectedness to everything, to all living things. It keeps my inquiry, my curious brain thinking about the big picture, about why we're all here, but that took some time to get used to, some time to step into. It wasn't always that way. In a repressed nature, this shows up, or as on a low vibrational frequency, an inward expression of this gene is self-doubt. If you have checked out the video of Gene 64, you'll learn that our thinking is this neurobiofeedback loop of perpetual inquiries that, when internalized and personalized, can become very self-destructive. The way out of self-doubt is community, it's outreach, it's support. If you're lucky in life, you've got a couple people that you can reach out to when you're losing your crown, when you're falling onto a scarcity and fear vibration. Hopefully there's a couple people in your life that can remind you just how capable you are. As an outward expression of this gene, that turns into a projection of suspicion of others. Now I'm just going to give you a hypothetical example of what suspicion might look like through this gene. Say, for example, you're in a partnership with somebody, maybe living together, and you notice your patterns, that your partner's patterns are changing. Maybe they're leaving for work early, coming late at night. They don't seem as present when you're spending time with them. And your logic and reasoning is going off in your head that the patterns have changed. Something's different. My third eye is telling me something's amiss here, something's off. And if you go and reach out to one of those trusted people in your life, hopefully they can remind you how worthy you are of a healthy relationship and encourage you to communicate with your partner. Don't stay on that low vibrational frequency of thinking that you're not good enough, that he's unfaithful, that he's stepping outside the relationship. Communicate what's coming up. Let him know something seems off with you. What's the deal? And hopefully they encourage you to connect with one another. And hopefully you do. And hopefully your partner is responsive to that. And what you might find out is, yes, the patterns are off. Yes, he's not as present. He's planning a big surprise for you. He's not unfaithful. He's not going to leave you. He wants to marry you. He's going to propose to you and working extra hours for this big ring and the surprise engagement, or maybe it's a vacation or a surprise party. You know, we can fuel ourselves with so much self-doubt and project it onto others through things like suspicion. And that's not coming from our highest place. And when we can take the time to communicate, so often is when we come to find out it's nothing, there's nothing wrong with you. You didn't do anything bad. And that's the conundrum of the shadow, low vibration of this gene, is it's logical. It's based in these thoughts that you can keep validating. I was reading Braving the Wilderness by Brene Brown this week, and she talks about the division in this country. There's so much division. And she mentions, if you want to go out and look for reasons to have anxiety or to feel bad or worthless, you're going to get validated all over the place. There's a collective low vibrational frequency around fear and scarcity and not feeling belonging or connected. So it's easy to pick it up along the way if that's what you're looking for. You'll always find it. So this gift of inquiry comes in after you stop personalizing everything. And you take those inquiries and you manifest it out into the ethers and raise the vibration to something meaningful with it. So in 2015, I lost my job suddenly. It was my dream career. I thought I'd be with them forever. It was so unexpected that I did the only thing I could think to do is I called my person. I called my dad. And lo and behold, if I thought I was having a bad day, he was experiencing the exact same thing. Only I was young, I was 32. I had only been with my company for a handful of years. He had spent 33 years in that company, longer than I had even been alive. So him losing his job was him losing his identity. He had wrapped up, his work had consumed so much of his life that without that job, he didn't know what he could be, what he could do. We talked for hours that day, and we supported one another. And as I thought of creative solutions of what do we do now? What's next? Maybe you can be a consultant. Maybe I can start an Etsy shop with art. I could hear his self-doubt. Not long after he took his life. He never got out of that low vibrational frequency. The person that I connected to the most in this entire universe was now suddenly gone. I thought it was bad to lose my job and lose my career, but now I just lost my person, my best friend, my mentor, the person that was my spiritual guide in my life up until that point. And I started on the poor me drama, the victim mindset that we often succumb to on a low vibration. But you can't stay there. Eventually, you have to take the inner questions and start using them to fuel you instead of exhaust you. This passage through this gene welcomes and invites the yoga journey. And that's exactly what I did. And yes, I mean the asana practice, the movement practice of yoga, but I mean all of the limbs. I mean the shadow work, the meditation, the breath work, the mind, body, and spirit connection. In my life, when I'm experiencing a catastrophic event, I want to check out. And what I realized is I needed to check in so deeply, more deeply than I had ever checked in before. Because now I really had to come back into my body and feel this pain and feel it all the way to the other side of it. So I could find the lesson in what it was all for. I knew on a deeper level that we're not meant to come here and suffer. But I could get so much validation from the world and even my family that sometimes that is what it is. Sometimes that is the channel we get stuck on, is the victim mindset, is the fear, is the scarcity. My father didn't know what his purpose was without his career, and he couldn't go on. He felt he was literally worth more dead than he was alive. And that was the fear and scarcity vibration that manifested so deeply into his being that I lost him. Through my yoga journey, I have been able to start asking the bigger questions. That journey, that path led me back to my childlike wonder, to my curious brain, to what am I? What am I a part of? Who is God? What is God? I've heard about this my whole life, but who is this? What is this? How do I find it? And I love that quote that says, when I went looking for myself, I found God. When I went looking for God, I found myself. And that was my experience. That has been my experience. So that inquiry, that gift of inquiry leads us back to our curiosity. The program partner, imagination, invites us to get curious. Look for what the world needs now and add more of that. Your journey, your passage through these shadows are not a life sentence. It's a curriculum. It's meant to be learned and taught for collective healing. Healing starts with ourselves. In 2020, I lost my best guy friend to suicide. And again, another cataclysmic event. Someone that I deeply, intimately connected to. Someone who got me. Someone that I understood on a level that I don't always understand with people. We got to have those really juicy spiritual conversations with one another. And then he was gone. I certainly did go back to my shadow frequency. And I cried. And I had the poor me drama of why this, why now. Only this time, I had a foundation of yoga. I had some tools in my toolbox, so I didn't have to go down the flight of stairs below the basement to grieve. I could be on the first floor this time and grieve and go back to my body in the times that my brain wanted to leave it. My heart wanted to leap out of it because it suffered so much, it hurt so much. I was able to invite in the storm of the grief and let it shake me up this time. I knew it would take time, but I knew that I had already gone through something that I didn't think I was capable of going through, and I could do this one too. And that is the shadow of self-doubt. It's thinking that we won't make it through something hard. But if we're going to have doubt in ourselves, then we also have to have doubt in our self-doubt. And that's the biofeedback loop around this gene. Couldn't it also be true that this is really, really hard, but you can do it? You can heal from this just like you healed the last time? After my dad had passed, I had even gone into an abusive marriage. My self-worth was at such a low place that I was easily able to validate it in an experience and relationship with somebody else. I got exactly the vibration that I was on at that time. Abused. Suffering. Why me? Poor me. Why is this happening? And it hurt. All of it hurt. I suffered. And now here's Mark gone. And that suffering triggered all of these behaviors. And I thought back to something that my dad had told me all of my life in different ways. He would tell me that I had a gift of adding structure to chaos. Whether it was through language and communication, or through organizing. As a child, I loved back to school shopping. And I don't just mean the clothes, I mean the school supplies. My brain loved to create structure and color-coded folders and notebooks and tabs that went for each class, because what I realized is providing myself with that structure and that routine provided an organization and a feeling, an illusion of safety and comfortability in an otherwise unpredictable and chaotic world or school. I still do that. I love to add structure to my day through daily planners and to-do lists and monthly goals and checking in on a weekly basis. That structure and those routines provides me that discipline to be consistent and mindful every single day, and also open up the time for curiosity. Plan the time to play and have fun and tap into that little kid in you that wants to be so full of wonder and awe, because that's what your brain wants. To imagine best case scenarios, not get stuck on the low vibration of fear and anxiety, which is what happens, especially over a long period of time, is that self-doubt channels itself into this nervousness, this fear. And so I thought about what my dad had said. You add structure to chaos. Your ability to organize things, concepts, processes, and thoughts make you a great partner, a great assistant, a great member of a team, a great parent. And as all of these shadows were coming out, with all of this grief over this new loss, I thought, now shadow work is this thing that I've been hearing about a lot. How do I get started? And when I started my Google search on what is shadow work and who is Carl Jung, I found this vast, open, wide, mega verse of concepts and ideas and archetypes and shadows and stories and podcasts and books, and I didn't know where to get started. So I just started the first podcast. I read the first book. I started looking at my first shadow. And very soon after, I bumped into the Gene Keys. And as I said at the beginning of this, Richard Rudd and I share the same primary gift. So how incredible to bump into someone like-minded like me, who is able to take a expansive concept, provide structure and language to it, and take me on the journey of understanding every single shadow, every archetype, how it manifests inward and outward, what chakra aligns with it, the chemicals, the amino acids, the codon rings. This one, the 63rd gene, is the codon ring of divinity. But what an amazing discovery that someone had already done the work that I set out to and put it out there so that I could have my own experimental journey with this. And it was really hard at first. I had to look at not only my own wounds, but my toxic traits and how they show up. How my feelings around not feeling worthy of love and belonging can outwardly manifest as suspicion, I have had more people ask me to marry them than most people that I know, and I will look you dead in the face and tell you that I've never been loved before when I'm having a bad day and on my shadow vibration. It's always there. It's so easy to creep in. And this passing of my friend reignited all of those feelings around rejection and abandonment and disconnection that I felt when I lost my person before. And this time, I had my tools in my toolbox to keep myself regulated as I underwent this new journey, this transformational path. And what I realized is, it's not personal. There's a blessing in it. When I think about mental health in this country, I think about what an amazing time to be alive when we are changing the conversation. When I was younger, the conversation was, what's wrong with you? And now it's what's happened to you. We're not just made up of our genes like scientists originally thought. We're so much more than just our inherent genes. We are epigenetics. We are our environment. There is such an incredible influence by the experiences that we have that expand ourselves or retract them. And that's our evolution. So through this passage into inquiry, I found my way into understanding what the world needs more of now, what I believe that the world needs more of now. It needs more conversations about what happened to you. Oprah and Dr. Bruce Lipton has a book that came out, I don't think that long ago, called What Happened to You, where they go into this concept of how our life experiences recreate our ability to navigate the world, to survive. Because don't forget, so much of our brain is still our reptilian brain. And so much of our programming is our subconscious patterning. It's not our expansive imagination all the time. A lot of times it's just the limiting beliefs that we've heard over and over and over again that we've adopted as our own. And what it usually connects to is fear, scarcity, feelings of worthlessness or disconnection. It's the biggest problem I think that we have in this world right now is we're so disconnected from source. When we lose our connection to source, we lose our understanding of why we're even here, the bigger picture of what it's all about. And when we lose our feelings of being connected to something greater, that victim mindset, so readily available to us, becomes our predominant thoughts. Poor me. Why me? This only happens to me. Life is the worst for me. Truth. The highest destiny path of truth. There's so much paradox that happens in the gene keys, and truth is a big one. There is no universal truth. Richard Rudd talks about this as though it's super controversial, and yet I'm like, no, that is fact. That is how I feel. What's true for you may not be true for me, but it doesn't make it any less true for us. Our truth is our emotional experience. Our truth is not universal. In science, we have discoveries. We have theories. We see patterns. We have hypotheses, but we don't have an absolute truth. And what fun would it be if we arrived into our physical body with a handbook? This will be your name, these will be your friends, this is what you'll study in school, this is the career that you'll have 2.5 kids, you'll live in the suburbs, you'll die at 74 of a heart attack. What fun would that be? What adventure could you be on if you already knew exactly how it's gonna end? This life is a dance. Yoga isn't just an hour class that you take at a studio. It's a way of living your life with an intention to practice mindfulness and stay integrated with your mind, your body, and your spirit. Yoga is a lifestyle. And even yoga doesn't have a finale. You don't do yoga to get good at yoga. So truth, as you come to realize, was there all along. Truth is doubt. Doubt is truth. Both are true. Truth is the knowing that we don't have it all figured out, and we never will. Because life is a dance, and this is part of the process. Our highest destiny path of truth means Tantra, which is what the yoga lifestyle leads you to. Tantra. And what is Tantra but surrender? The sweet surrender that your truth is valid and so is mine. You know, when you have a crime scene and you've got 5 eyewitnesses there and they share their testimony in the courtroom, all 5 of them are going to have very different experiences. I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but an eyewitness is not super reliable because they are going to have their own adaptation of that emotional experience. And to some, what somebody goes through might just be any old day, and to some, it might be the most traumatic experience they've ever had. And both of those would be true. They would be true for them. Right now, I think what is such a problem is this division that we have. This division of Republican versus Democrat, of pro-life versus pro-choice, we even have color of our skin still being talked about with division. It's insane how collective this low vibration is around this fear place. If we had a universal truth, we would all be forced to defend that truth. And that's what this division is. I have to be right, so you have to be wrong. That's not how it works. If it's true for you, it's true. That's it. When I was a little girl, my best friend, who is now a mathematician, that was not ever my strong suit. She used to joke with me because I would say that 0 meant infinite. 0 was the largest, most infinite number. And she would say, no, 0 is nothing. There's no value in 0. And I'd say, no, but it's infinite. And now here I am with a major life focus on studying and trying to wrap my curious brain around the void, the no-thingness, the space that no-thingness consumes. And doesn't that mean it has value? So I still bring that back up in my life of maybe I was onto something back then. You just didn't believe me because it wasn't your truth. You didn't adopt it as your truth, but it was no less true for me. This passage of surrender, it brings us to peace. It brings back the ease in our life. When we can let someone's story and emotional experience be validated and true for them without having to defend our truth, our version, how it would have played out for us, what our version would have looked like, and we just accept that our truths are different, man, it invites in so much peace, contentness, ease. Life isn't what happened to you. I'm sorry. Life is what happened to you. But life isn't happening to you, it's happening for you. And now I've lost two of the most important people in my life from what I believe is one of the absolute worst soul-crushing ways. Suicide, self-inflicted injuries. And my primal gift of inquiry leads me now to add more awareness to our emotional truths. Sharing my story connects me to others. Owning my truth invites in more peace. And you know what I'll say is that when I was looking for myself, I found God. In this spiritual journey, when I went looking for my connection to Source, coming from a place of disconnection, I had lost that feeling of belonging that my best friend and my father gave me. And now I serve others. I invite others to get back on their mat, get back in their body, feel the feelings all the way through so that you can be done with them, so that they don't have to get stuck in you. This journey has led me back to my dad. It's led me back to my friend. I feel him all around me, all the time. He connects with me in many different ways. And is that true for everyone? I don't think it matters, right? It's true for me. This journey invites the sweet surrender. The original I Ching hexagram name for this gene is after completion. What a paradox. It's the second to last hexagram of the I Ching, and its name is after completion. The final one, the 64th gene, is before completion. And you'd think that they would be opposite, right? But they're not. Because after you use your imagination and you inquire, you create the solutions that change the world. The gift of this gene invites you to look and see how you could be of service to the world. What does the world need more? I'm not going to channel my self-doubt into the ethers. Instead, I'm going to notice we need more conversations about the climate crisis. We need to stop world hunger and sex trafficking. Through our imagination, we come up with these creative solutions. And then we use our logic and reasoning to put them down on paper and make a plan to make them happen. And that is the cycle of these programming partners. The logic goes into the vision. The vision then fuels the logic. And that's how they weave in with one another. How do you activate your genius with the 63rd gene? You invite more moments of playful curiosity. You bring back your childlike wonder. For me, that's watching a moon or sunrise or sunset, staring out at the night sky and seeing all of the stars and just having your breath taken away. The moments of truth are the silence between the words, the moments that leave us speechless in awe, the sweet surrender after completion. It makes sense in its own nonsensical nature, which is exactly what the human journey is. And this curriculum, this activate your genius, those gene keys, these hologenetic profiles, they offer a roadmap. They offer some patterns and logical reasoning to organize the chaos of life. I invite you to activate your genius by stepping back into your body, stepping back into your mind, moving through life just a little bit slower and with more intention, checking in when a sensation or feeling comes up and noticing what it is, where it is, what it feels like, and allowing yourself to feel it all the way through without numbing it out. And this particular gene wants the community outreach. Go volunteer. Work at a food bank. That was part of my healing journey after my divorce. Volunteering at a domestic violence women's shelter. Working at a food bank. Being of service to others. Finding that place of belonging by surrounding yourself with people that need your help, that need your service. It doesn't have to be a grand gesture. Smile at a stranger. That's activating your genius. Sweet surrender. Absolute truth is a bunch of bullshit. I'm sorry. It is. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now am found. Was blind, but now I see. As Glinda would say, you've had the power all along, my dear. Truth was riding with you all along on this journey. As you went out looking for the bigger picture, the reason, the logic, the patterns, a way to interpret the chaos, provide structure to it. You're only just providing yourself with a false illusion of safety and comfort. Because the only thing that's true is that it's full of doubt after completion. The sweet surrender. Thank you so much for listening and taking the time. I appreciate you for being here. I love you so much. You're so worth being curious and playful, going on adventures and exploring and taking the time to notice the world around you and live in it. Be an active participant in this life. If you liked this video, give it a like or a follow. You can check out my other videos, Gene Key 64 and Gene Key 36. I love you so much. Namaste.